Hello again, folks. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And this actually, we're pre-recording on the Wednesday before our Monday air, but this is going to turn out to be the last show of 2020 for Media Watch because the next air date after this one airs is going to be early January. So we're not going to do a recap of 2020. Maybe we'll do that in January. But we're going to do what's actually breaking in the news and what will be breaking in January. And so why don't we start with the fact that 2 days ago, because we're taping the Wednesday after that Monday, December 14th, the electors met and actually voted officially to certify that Joseph R. Biden and Kamala Harris are the vice president-elect and vice president-elect of these United States. And of course, there's been all kinds of good, obtuse, and bad response and reaction to that vote. Bob, you said something about the crazy people in Arizona or something, uh, uh, meeting with their own electors. What was that story? Or was it Nevada, meeting out in the cold?
It's funny, we're sitting here waiting for things to resolve logically, but as we just discussed before we went on air, there's very little logic in this process so far. But yeah, the electors met in the various state capitals around the country, and I was watching the one in California where they had 55 electors, and it was a very august ceremonial type meeting where things were done slowly and meticulously to make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, and it was so very carefully and and elegantly done, I guess, to make sure these electoral votes in California got counted.
They were professional and sensible.
Yes. And then there was this scene in Nevada where a group of uh, Republicans, who I guess would have been the electors had the Republicans actually won Nevada, came out in the outside of the state house in the cold with their coats on. I actually have that Twitter thing on my screen. I'll try to bring it up without sound, of course. And just to show you the kind of lunacy, if I can find it real quickly here, the lunacy we're dealing with in well, I'll find it later since I don't see it up on my screen. They met outside and cast votes in the wind and pretended that they were the official electors of Nevada, and they were going to send this on to Congress for as an alternate slate to represent the state. Which, of course, there's no mechanism in the Constitution for this kind of silliness.
So Raymond,
Yeah.
you were talking about the fact that there seems to be no logic when it comes to dealing with Republicans. So what out of this latest thing, tell me a little bit about this suit that was filed by the Attorney General's, Texas Attorney General and 16 others. There were 17 Republican attorneys general in various states who filed another bogus suit at the Supreme Court to challenge the
Yeah.
voting totals in the four contested Midwest states. And 126 Republican members of the House, including Kevin McCarthy, put their name to that suit. And I know you got irate. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, 126 congressmen. I don't understand that at all. The protesters out in the street, they're just absolutely nuts. They're on the same wavelength as the guy who's leaving the White House. The 126 Congress people, I don't get it. They have nothing to fear from him any longer. And if they're on the same wavelength as he is, how the hell did they ever get elected? How did they get confirmed? Yeah, I'm irate about it, and I'm looking for the logic. There is none, so I just don't know how to respond to that question, Eric.
It's funny you should mention about how did they ever get elected. There was a Florida newspaper. I don't know whether it was the Sun Times or the Sentinel or which, but the guy that they endorse, can't pull his name out. COVID brains got me. They rescinded their endorsement. They wrote an apology to their readers and said, "We are sincerely sorry. We endorse this person for the seat because we failed to ask him if he got elected whether he would try to curtail democracy, try to abrogate the votes of the people of the country, and keep some autocratic person in office." He said, going forward, we'll make sure we ask, especially Republicans, that question before they get our endorsement. So I don't know, maybe some good may come out of this. But I almost fell out the chair laughing when I read their apologies to their readers.
And if you don't mind, Eric, I can share the screen, which lists just briefly, which lists the 126
Yeah,
people.
do, Bob.
If I can do this, there we go. This is somebody's Twitter feed, the seditious 126 House members,
and I title, seditious.
Yeah, and you know, in New York we have Representative Lee Zeldin and Representative Elise Stefanik, who can, you know, frankly both go to hell as far as I'm concerned for putting their names to this.
Now it's interesting. You see below that screen, hashtag stop the seating.
I'm not seeing that.
You don't see it? On my screen, I can see it, Bob.
At the very bottom.
The headline at the top says the seditious 126, and below it says hashtag stop the seating.
Right, yeah, no, I see it.
Great, great. That brings me to part of the fallout from this craziness. The New Jersey House Member, Bill Pascarell, I believe he wrote a letter to Nancy Pelosi and said, look, these are seditious people. They have basically violated the 14th Amendment. I believe it's Article 3 of the 14th Amendment that says, and I think it was passed because they did not want to seat people from the South after the Civil War who were traitors to the country. And so if you were a traitor, unless you abided by certain rules and regulations, you were not allowed to be seated. And they passed this, part of it was getting the 14th Amendment passed to make sure this didn't happen again. And so Pascarell is saying, Pelosi, you don't need to seat these 126 in the next session of Congress. They have become traitors to the country by trying to undermine a valid election of the United States of America. And that is seditious and traitorous. And the attorney generals who defended that stupid lawsuit filed by the Texas AG listed it as the seditious lawsuit. That was part of their brief to the Supreme Court. And so I think Pascarell used that phrase and said, oh, they're correct. Let me invoke this. Let's see if we can unseat or not seat this 126. And I love that approach because it starts to bring accountability for stupid, traitorous actions that these Republicans are engaging in. My question to you guys is, do you think Nancy Pelosi or anybody in the Democratic Party has the guts to follow Pascarell's lead and say, yeah, let's invoke that and not seat these suckers?
Well, I'd like to believe that we'll go ahead with that. Why do you think that right-minded legislators wouldn't accept that?
I mean, at least with Pelosi, you remember her hesitancy to deal with the impeachment.
Yeah.
I mean, she slow walked that, and and actually, I was kind of in agreement with that at the beginning, and and I think, quite frankly, that they want to move ahead with the new administration and not look back and kick the ass of these 126 seditious. But quite frankly, it would be a good move and a good shock to the sensibilities of these idiots if their seats were threatened like this.
Right, and I don't see it as being going backwards. I see it as protecting the future going forward.
I agree with you, Ray.
If we instituted this now and mandated it, I think we'd be better off in the future, don't you?
I agree with you 100% because these people are totally undermining the democratic rule of law. undermining the actual Constitution of the United States of America by filing all these crazy lawsuits. I don't want to call them frivolous. They're dangerous. I'm glad those attorney generals use the word seditious because they are torpedoing the checks and balances and the actual governing architecture of this country. And interestingly, because we were talking about this earlier, an LA Times columnist, I forget his name, Maitland or Bill, let me see if I can call him up. I can't call up the message because my screen is full with the Zoom panel. I can't get to I can't click on it. But what he said was, in the judicial system, frivolous lawsuits and crazy lawsuits can be penalized in that you don't just throw them out. You make the individuals who bring them pay a hefty monetary penalty for having the nerve to waste the court's time in doing this. And then you take the lawyers who had the gall to front these lawsuits to task by bringing them up on charges because there are clause 3 or clause 8 or rule 11, I forget what it was when I read it, within the judicial code, that you can get disbarred for doing this stuff. And out of 59 crazy lawsuits, you would think some lawyers should be being brought up on charges. That was the thrust of this man's opinion column for the LA Times back in, I think, he wrote it, it aired on December 2nd, aired 2 weeks ago. And I agree with him, just like I agree with you, Ray. They should not seat these 126 people. The ones who are continuing these seditious claims, they should not be seated, the ones who are newly elected. And the only thing that I've seen that may actually come to accountability, I don't know if you guys saw it, it was in that email I sent you, Simco or Semtech, who's the company, Smart, whatever, that had the hardware and architecture in some of these elections. They have sent a letter to Fox, to OAN and Newsmax saying, if you don't cease and desist these charges, these stories of fraudulent, fake results on our elections, we're going to take you to court. And the letter says, cease and desist to the effect of a cease and desist, or else we will be filing suit against you.
I hope they do that. Yeah, I really hope they do that. I mean, you're thinking of Dominion as well.
Dominion is the software people, the smart tech or whoever those guys are. They did the hardware stuff, and they say our stuff was above reproach, like Krebs said.
Yeah,
Krebs said this was error-free. It was not hacked. One of the safest elections of all time. Krebs, by the way, folks, is the guy who was the Trump administration's head of cybersecurity for the elections. Forget his first name.
And as we tape right now on Wednesday before the Monday air, he's actually speaking before a Senate hearing to back up his not claim, but his proof that this was not a fraudulent election, that there were no problems with voting machines or anything like that. So he's actually testifying as we record.
Yeah, and the Trump people will say that he was either lying or brainwashed. You know, it doesn't matter. They don't care.
Not the Trump people. Trump tweeted that today.
Yeah, but you know what? Ray has a point, and I'll tell you why. It's because one of these Trump supporters in the Senate is the chair of this particular committee. And the only reason Krebs is on Capitol Hill testifying is because this asshole decided, despite the fact that the Electoral College has already voted, and Mitch McConnell, who we will get to next, has finally admitted that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris are the president, vice president-elect of this country. Despite all that, this dodo, this idiot, decided he would call hearings to investigate the election irregularities of the 2020 presidential election, okay? And so what the Democrats did was, all right, you wanna hold these hearings? Let's just have Christopher Krebs be our key witness to deal with your silly ass, stupid hearing. And so that's why Krebs is in Capitol Hill testifying today as we're taping. But the Democrats understand that Krebs is quite credible, and the fact that he got fired for being able to stand up to Donald Trump and say, no, this ain't fake news. It ain't a fake election. This thing was safe and secure. You lost. And he got fired.
Well,
I mean, it
everybody
was
that
not.
doesn't-
Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just going to say, everybody who doesn't agree with him gets fired. Period. He's even turned against his buddy Mitch McConnell. I loved his tweet about Mitch. I mean, he didn't come right out and say he's a traitor, but that's what he meant in his tweet. I don't. You might remember exactly what it was. I don't.
Bob, you got something that you could actually call up and read about who's attacking Mitch McConnell besides Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, let me see if I can get that up on the screen real quickly.
Yeah, while you're looking for it, I just want to make this particular note, though. The fact that Mitch McConnell took this long to acknowledge the results of that election, he gets no points from me.
Oh, no.
That SOB has been torpedoing the democratic system in this country for the last, however many years, 15 years he's been Senate Majority Leader, however long he's been in that position.
Yeah. I think he's beginning to see some holes in the bottom of his boat.
Yeah, let me put it this way. He's done serious damage. You guys probably didn't catch it, but Frontline did a phenomenal documentary a couple of weeks ago. It aired a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, on Mitch McConnell's long game. And his goal after Robert Bork got torpedoed for the Supreme Court way back in 1970, whenever the hell it was to make sure that the government of the United States, and especially the judiciary of the United States, became a conservative bastion. And so that's why he torpedoed all of Barack Obama's judicial nominees. That's why he torpedoed Merrick Garland. That's why he torpedoed everybody and his uncle. And that's why he ramrodded Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, whatever her three names are, onto the Supreme Court. So yeah, he gets no kudos from me. I hope those two runoff seats in Georgia go Democratic so we can get his ass out of that majority seat.
I hope you're right. Bob, why am I seeing your screen?
Well, as this is a story that Donald Trump tweeted himself.
Okay.
This is a Daily Mail story. MAGA turns on Mitch. Trump tweets that people are angry as allies, including Michael Flynn, slammed the GOP Senate Majority Leader. I hate these ads that pop up.
Yeah.
I'll just go down to the lead. Donald Trump says people are angry after Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell congratulated President-elect Joe Biden, and the sitting president's most ardent loyalists vented their fury at the high-ranking Republican. So the extreme right is now putting McConnell on the hot seat for not being far right enough.
Actually, you have something about that QAnon person.
Yes.
I don't want to call her lady. That QAnon person from Georgia, female.
Yes, she's right here.
Yeah.
He highlighted, that's Trump. He highlighted anger from incoming Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Georgia Republican and QAnon follower, and a racial as well as a racially charged attack on McConnell's Chinese American wife by Lynn Wood, a conspiracy theorist. But this is what this newly elected Congresswoman for Georgia said, quote, "Every Republican that isn't fighting for real Donald Trump's 2020 landslide victory is supporting the Chinese Communist Party takeover of America," Greene tweeted following McConnell's remarks. This is someone they just elected, a fresh lunatic in Congress.
Yeah, we got another one coming in, but maybe based on her statement, public statement about, quote, Donald Trump's landslide victory, that's another seditious statement from an incoming elected official who does not need to be seated, because she's actually trying to say we did not have a valid election, which means she is basically going against the Constitution of the United States of America that was upheld in this election and in the process. So why should we seat her? Why should she not join the club of the 126 who don't need to be seated? She doesn't need to be seated either.
No.
I mean, we have rules, we have laws, and it's funny when you have a bully running things. People think that because they have the bully up there to protect them, that they can do as they like. They're not going to have the bully after January 20th. So I don't know what they're thinking.
Maybe we can make them pay the price for trying to support the bully before they even walk into the halls of Congress. That would be nice, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Nice. But it's not, it should happen. It should just happen. Nancy Pelosi, get up off your butt and make it happen. Period.
I tell you.
It's funny because the three of us have had this conversation. We figured first we thought things would be over on November 3rd. Then we thought things would be over when they called the election. Then we thought things were over when they recounted Georgia's vote for the third time. And, now we thought it was over that the electors have met and put in their paperwork. And, it ain't over.
Bob, remember what we said here on Media Watch. The lawsuits are not frivolous. The lawsuits are a delaying tactic to try to stall the deadline so that the deadline would not be met for the electors to vote, correct? Isn't that what we had Alan Singer with us. Dr. Singer talked to us about what those rolling deadlines, what those fixed deadlines were and what needed to happen. And we said, all right, the name of the game is to make sure all these lawsuits don't stop these folks from meeting their deadlines. And of course, 59 plus lawsuits, I think it was 60, and he was one for 59 before filing the new one. So here's the point. All the deadlines were met. They're officially certified. Even Mitch McConnell came along and said whatever. But what did Mitch McConnell have to do after he said the electors have spoken, the Electoral College has voted? He said to his fellow Republican senators, do not try to screw up anything in January. So Ray, Bob, give us a background on what else they could try to screw up in January, because evidently the guy in the White House said it's not over until January 20th. So there's something in early January that they still are going to try to do to mess up Joe Biden's smooth transition.
I don't, good question. I think they're clutching at straws. I don't think that they have anything planned. I think that they're scrambling like crazy to try and plan something. They've found that their lawsuit road is just not working for them. So I don't know. What do you think, Bob? I mean, I'm a little lost.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the delaying tactics earlier. I didn't, I wasn't
There's
believing.
nothing to delay any longer, though, except the inauguration. There's no way.
Well, on January, now that the electors have spoken, on January the 6th, they have to, the Congress has to count and and accept the electors' votes.
Say that again, Bob. Say that again slowly with emphasis.
Okay, on January 6th, both houses of Congress have to meet to accept the electors' votes as submitted by all 50 states
and the District of Columbia.
And certify
Columbia. Yeah, they got
yes, and the District of Columbia. Yes, and certify everything basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if some shenanigans take place, whereas somehow they can't get 200.
Uh-oh.
Are you frozen? Oh,
process where each state.
Okay, say it again, Bob. You froze for a second.
Okay. Yes, let me. There's one thing I can do to my internet connection while I'm speaking to add to improve that. But anyway, let me do one thing. I think this will fix it, and this ought to do it. On January 6th, both houses of Congress have to meet to certify the electoral votes. If they can't get 270 votes counted, it goes to a different process, whereas each state has one vote. In other words, Iowa has the same one vote as California. It's not 55 California electoral votes against whatever Iowa's, 5 or whatever. Right. It's one per state. Right. And there are more red states than there are blue states. And that's where things can be
Yeah.
It probably won't happen, but that's a legal path to us, to the election getting screwed.
So Raymond, that's what I was saying. Yeah, we keep thinking, okay, it's all over. We've put this craziness to bed. But there were people like Rand Paul, I believe, and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz took that bogus lawsuit to the Supreme Court. So they should be dismissing him from his Senate seat as well for seditious activity. But say, and that's why Mitch McConnell was saying to his people, do not screw up January 6th.
Yes.
Let
And
this
we
thing
have about
proceed as it should.
we have about a minute and a half left.
So the bottom line is we got at least one more deadline that we got to worry about stupidity and seditious activity and craziness coming from the Republican Party. I don't know if you guys saw Steve Schmidt, the Lincoln Project co-founder, former Republican guy, who basically called out the Republican Party, his former party, for being totally traitorous, seditious, anti-democratic, and wanting to bring in an autocratic rule. It was an amazing, amazing takedown. He said it in one paragraph and he hit the nail on the head with every sentence. I wish I had taped it so I could play it for you guys and play it for our viewers.
I remember, I saw it, but you haven't heard anything about that or him since, have you?
Actually, I saw on my feed, he was on somebody's show, my Yahoo feed today when I was checking other breaking stories.
Oh.
There he was at another forum somewhere else talking about exactly that. So yeah, I'm not, and what I like about the Lincoln Project people, they know how to call out Republicans. As Republicans or former Republicans, they call out these Trump people all the time. So we didn't get to anything but the craziness, but I think we got to it in such a way that might help other people out there understand why crazy is still going on. So how much time we got left?
We're about done.
That's been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube and Twitter at Media Watch EVT.
And I'm Raymond Peterson. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to you all.
And stay safe in the time of COVID, folks. We'll catch you after this show. We'll catch you in the new year.